Right, welcome ladies and gentlemen to a video on the weird and wonderful behind the scenes drama nonsense that is Marvel. So MCU The Direct shared this. Fired X-Men 97 showrunner Bo DeMeo has alleged that Marvel Studios chief Kevin Feige resented the show because fans were using it as a referendum on how the MCU is failing. Full quote, and obviously a link to an article. We'll take a look at exactly what he said as well. This is fascinating stuff. But here's the article. So he said this, right? First, the X-Men are so much bigger than any one creative, myself included. Would I have loved to write, direct, steer the live-action films? Of course. But I have great faith that there are amazing artists out there who have amazing visions and stories to tell with the X-Men. Now, do I have faith in the MCU's mutant saga? Short answer, not yet, no. And let me walk you through why, so you don't think I'm just being a hater. And he continued further. Said X-Men requires planning, deep planning to pull them off and make them resonate. You also have to be very mindful of how you're laying out their story and the way in which audiences will experience the story. This is applicable to anything, by the way, but alright. You also need to suppress your ego to make it your own and focus on meeting the mutants on their terms, which means deeply respecting their canon and the emotional investment that fans have in that canon. With this in mind, this is the start of Marvel Studios' mutant saga. And anyway, then he just said, a retcon and musical sting in Ms. Marvel, that she's now somehow a mutant, literally. Our first intro to the X-Men in the MCU is not one of the decades worth of mutants, but a young adult retcon that Kevin forced onto the franchise to make it his own, and out the MCU spin, and it is a tease and retcon that they still have not paid off. To the above, for decades X-Men fans have waited for teenage mutants like Jubilee and Kitty Pryde to get their justice and due in film. Kevin knows this, but just like Fox shoved a teenage retconned rogue down our throats, Kevin and Marvel are shocked Khan down our throats when far more interesting mutants would do. It's an FU to fans, and having been in the room with these guys, it is absolutely all ego. Even having a newly cast Jubilee show up at the end of Ms. Marvel to recruit her would have been better than the instantly forgettable tag we got. So it continues further. This is all just talking about X-Men, right? But he's sort of outlining bits and pieces, and it's quite comical, to be honest. He's got good points, right? A lot of this stuff is just for everything, mind you, but yeah, he does have good points. But then he continues further and says, like, I don't mean to be a hater, but who looks at this and says this is the care and respect and serious thinking that the X-Men characters deserve? Hell, who looks at this and says this is competent leadership from a studio that is in no way alarming? Kevin is introducing new concepts like adamantium and mutant Ms. Marvel while simultaneously recycling old Fox characters, all before telling us they're going to reboot everything anyways. Like, what the F? Which is completely fair points, to be honest. And then basically he just says offhand about Kevin Feige basically resenting X-Men 97, which is weird. Really, really, really weird. So he said this, and before you think I'm being egotistical, I highlight this to say, under my leadership and vision, my team and I created a project that resonated with the MCU's core audience in a way that Kevin and his parliament have so far failed to do in over a decade. Instead of looking at what my team and I did and learning to replicate our focus on canon and deep character work, they smeared me, tactically threatened the crew not to speak out whilst continuing to still abuse them, and have done everything to act like X-Men 97 wasn't a hit. Remember, I was told by a top executive at Marvel last year that Kevin resented my work and the show because fans like you were using it as a referendum on how Kevin's MCU is failing. I was told by several artists on the show that they had wanted to post or include blurbs commending me for their leadership and vision and all I poured into the show, only for Marvel to censor or reprimand them. Remember, Jake Costarina was literally stopped by Marvel in an interview of IGN for giving me too much credit as showrunner. Also, IGN went along with it, respected journalists that they are. So there's that. And then he clarified even further, which is comical as hell. So he went and just clarified the whole thing, which is, again, just brilliant. I love it. I absolutely love it. So he said this. Yep, I was told this in a phone call after episode 5 premiered. I asked the executive if Kevin was happy, because stupidly, I still wanted to help the studio out. Their response was a long pause, and then I was told that he'd be happier if fans and audiences weren't using it as a referendum on what the MCU needs to be doing to fix itself. What makes it worse, I think, is that Kevin has nothing to do with X-Men 97 and can take no credit for it. Even internally, before the show aired, Marvel employees were reaching out to me asking how I was able to make a show this good given where the studio was, and how it's the best thing the studio had done. With their praise, I noticed more and more that I was becoming a threat and regret to studio leadership. And again, Kevin and Lou Despacito, couldn't even be bothered to come to the premiere of the show at the El Capitan. They didn't show up to thank the fans. They didn't show up to thank this is writer anyway. The Lou Olds and Houstons, or the OG voice cast, or how they built the foundation back in the 90s of the MCU. Nope. We were just a little cartoon that wasn't sexy enough or taken seriously enough to warrant that great Kevin Feige to attend. Mental. Love it. So funny. So funny. Yep. And lots of people say this as well. It's claimed that Beau DeMayo sent nude photos of himself, in hero poses to young male staffers, blah, blah, blah. His excuse was that they could be used as inspiration, blah, blah, blah. And then he just replies and says, claimed with no proof or any logical evidence to provide, but believe what you want. So he completely refutes these claims. And there's apparently some legal proceedings going on as well. So, I don't know. It's comical, though. The behind-the-scenes stuff on Kevin Feige that we learn more and more about is just... I mean, it's hilarious. And bad, obviously. But it is hilarious. So, Kevin Feige, I mean, he does seem a bit like a bitch, doesn't he? Like, he seems like a proper bitch. So, yeah. I mean, why isn't the MCU advertising the show already, huh? Makes you wonder. The thing is, this was a huge success for them. And I can see this being true in the respect that people did compare it to everything else and was like, well, how is the rest of the MCU garbage at the moment? Like, what's going on? So, yeah. I think Beau DeMayo is an issue for sure. Like, I think he probably was a bit of a pain to work with. But a pain maybe in the best possible way because he was trying to get on the side of the fans and do what they wanted. Who knows? But a hugely successful show, and Kevin Feige hasn't produced anything successful for a while, so not good, but hilarious. And I love catching up on this stuff because it is just comical. So leave your thoughts down below. Bye now.